Hi and welcome. My name is Heather. I'm the Kindred Curator, and today I'm going to show you how to research a grave, starting with really nothing more than a name on a headstone. And I'm liking to call this Who Spoke to Me Today. As I'm walking about the cemetery, there is a particular gravestone that I find that just really speaks to me. I'm going to kind of look that person up and research them kind of step by step how I would go through finding them, and not making any promises that we'll find anything, but we'll do it together, and I'll just kind of show you the process that I go through. So the person that spoke to me one day last week was Adelia Sisco. And I was fascinated by this gravestone. I thought it was beautiful. I've not seen one like this that looks like a kind of upended book before. So I took a snapshot of this particular gravestone, and I thought I'm gonna look her up and see what I can find about Adelia. So the first thing that I like to do is look at that gravestone and really pull any kind of information out of it that I can, and list all those kind of facts that I have about that person. So this is Adelia Sisco, wife of C.W. Sisco. So clearly she was not born a Sisco, she was married to a Sisco. And so we need to see what kind of information we can find about CW. He was not buried with her, it was just her. She was born on August 15th, 1839, and she died January 20th, 1866. So she wasn't even 30 years old yet. Some additional facts I like to kind of create when I'm taking these snapshots of these gravestones. I like to just make notes of things that I find and information that might help me later on. So some things that I noticed about this. First off, there were other Siscos buried in the cemetery. This is my hometown small cemetery and small rural Indiana hometown. So Sisco, not a super popular name. So the fact that there were others buried in the cemetery, and I found them accidentally. I wasn't on the search for them. I was walking, and when I found Adelia's, I had taken a picture of it. And then I think the next day I was walking in another section of the cemetery and found some other Siscos. So they were on the opposite side of the cemetery. So I thought that was, is that unusual, not unusual? And then, is there a relation? Because this was such a unique surname and not one that's popular for the area, that is kind of the first question that I'm going to ask myself. Is there some kind of relationship with these people? So let's see if we can find a story. Again, not making any promises, but we'll see what we can find about Adelia, or maybe people that were affiliated with Adelia. So you'll see up here, I've got 4 different websites that I like to go to, and each one of them kind of serves a different purpose for me when I'm looking up information about a person. And when I do these searches, these are cold. This is not something I've kind of premeditated and found information about them ahead of time. I'm doing it as I'm going. So the first thing I do is go to Find a Grave, because it usually has lots of information for me. And like I mentioned, this nickname or this surname was unusual. So I'm going to put just the surname in there, and I'm going to put the cemetery location, and we'll see how many we come up with this surname. And so just a reminder, we are looking for Adelia Sisco. So we've got a Catherine, we've got an Eliza, and we've got a Reverend Francis Sisco. Okay, so this is interesting to me, because if I look at my sheet of notes at the other Siscos that I mentioned in another part of the cemetery, there was one that was a Reverend, because I made note of that. Yeah, a Reverend. Oh, and he was, yes, I think 2 of these are people that were the other Siscos. So one of them I found was Reverend F.W. Sisco. So I'm going to make note of this, because this is, I think, that other person I'm looking for. So Reverend Francis Sisco. So I'm going to come back to him at a later date, but I am making a note that I found him. And I also see that he's got a V. So likely veteran for Civil War would be my guess there. I also made a note that he was buried with his wife, Catherine. So my guess is this is his Catherine. But this is not our Adelia. So I'm going to change our search. One thing I did notice when I saw the gravestones with the other Siscos, there was one that was spelled differently, which I thought was different, weird. It was spelled with a C, Sisco. So let's see if I get any hits for C, Sisco. Yeah, none found. Okay, so let's do this. So we didn't find her by her last name, which again, she died in 1866 and she's in an older part of the cemetery that was moved. And so it is possible that the record is not showing on here. Let's go by her first name, Adelia, and see if we get anything with that. So I'm just looking her first name. And so this is for that same cemetery. And I'm looking for Sisco, and I do not in either maiden names or married names, not seeing Sisco. Okay, so strike out. All right, so let's go to Ancestry and let's do a search for an Adelia Sisco. And we have a good idea that she lived in Greensburg because that's where she was buried. And she was born, her tombstone said 1839, I think. Yep, 1839. So let's see what we get for her. Okay, so this spouse, yeah, that's not one. Okay, so here we have one that's a Methodist church record for Greensburg in 1860. So she was still alive then. So let's see what we've got here. And we know that the other Sisco in the cemetery was a reverend. We don't know what kind, but we know he was a reverend. So let's see what this, so this is United Methodist membership. And we have Adelia Sisco right there, December 9th, 1860. And it looks like, oh, we even have a name, so Charles. All right, so this is good news because her husband on her gravestone was C.W. Sisco. So Charles would track with that. And then I do love this. I don't know that it is any help, but we've got a main cross. I'm not sure if I think it's north, not south, north of Taylor is their residence. I mean, this is from the 1860, what was this, 1860? Yeah, that address doesn't ring a bell in my small town, but I mean, the addresses were definitely different. Okay, so this is good. So we have a Charles. All right, let's go back and see what else I can find. So if I'm looking down here, I see Sisco here. This one is in Ohio. This one is in New Jersey. This one is New York. That's Ethel. That's not even Adelia. But this one has some possibilities. So let me see. Let's look at this one because Ohio is right next door to Indiana. A lot of times people obviously traveling and migrating from east came through Ohio to Indiana. So it said she was born about 1839, which is what she was on the gravestone. It says her birthplace was New York, Waynesville, Warren, Ohio. And we've got, two good things here. We've got a Chaz W., which she was married to C.W. Sisco. And we also have a Calvin Sisco about the same age. So let's look at this. This could be helpful. All right, so we've got Chaz W. Sisco, shoemaker. I always love looking at occupations. 21. Adelia, also 21, New York. Okay, so some things that shows for him. It says he was born in Ohio. Okay, so that's, I think, a good thing to note. And then it doesn't say a relation because it's 1860, but we have a Calvin E. Make a note of that. Sisco, 24, was a printer, also born in Ohio. So brothers, possibly. Okay, so let's go back and see what else. None of these other ones are tracking for me. 1860 Ohio. Okay, so let's go to family search, and let's do a family tree search, and let's do Charles Sisco. Said he was born in Ohio on that census, and he was born the same year as Adelia. So let's look at that, and then let's do his spouse was Adelia. See if we have any luck with that. So here we go right here. Here's a Charles W. And we've got born in Ohio, a marriage to an Adelia Redden. Okay. And it says he died in 1912 and was buried in Bartholomew County, which is right next door to Decatur County, where Adelia was buried. All right, so let's click on Adelia and see what kind of info we get on her. Let's look at her information. So not a lot. So we just have a birth date of 1839, no death date. We have her marriage to Charles W. So let's see if we can find any information on that. Okay, I'm gonna pick another one, see if I can get, because I saw an image. Okay, here we go. View image. Okay. Okay, I think I messed up. That was not what I wanted to click on. There was another one down here. Let's look at this one, see if I can get to it. Okay, what do we got here? Washburn. Sisco, right here. Okay, so the state of Ohio, they were married. There's a good chance this is our peeps, so I'm gonna make note of this, in Clinton County. And it said that Charles W. was more than 18 years of age. That Adelia, interesting, they have her name spelled Adelia. Redden is more than 18 years of age. Okay, so this is their license. And it looks like they joined in marriage on the 24th of March, 1858. Huh, it's my son's birthday. So March 24th, 1858, that tracks time-wise. And they were in Ohio in 1860. And let's see what this says. So Charles W. Sisco and Adelia Redden, justice of the peace. I, Moses Sisco, zoom in here. I, Moses Sisco, do hereby consent to the marriage of my son, Charles W. Sisco, to Adelia Redden. All right, so we've got a dad here. So I'm going to put Moses Sisco. Okay. All right, so with family search, it looks like that is all the info that I've got. That 1860 census that we looked at on Ancestry, and then the marriage. All right, so let's go back and let's look at Charles and see what we can get with Charles. So Charles, we have an 1850. That doesn't, let's see what that one has. 9 years old in Warren County, Ohio. Dad was Moses. Okay, that makes sense. And then what does it say? He was born in Ohio, which is what that census said. Oh, and look who we have here, Calvin. And ages are a little bit different, but that's not a surprise with a census. So Calvin, I'm guessing that's a, I don't think it's going to tell us that on this particular one, but my guess is going to be brother. So where are the Siscos? Oh, okay. So this is one of those, this is good to know. So you've got Charles here at 9 years old, but he's at the top of this page. So I'm going to have to go to the previous page to see the other ones in the family. There we have Moses. Oh, it's got the special S there. Mary, Henrietta, Calvin. There he is. Okay, so we have Moses and we have Charles W., who we think, Adelia Redden. That is a good, okay, let's do a record search and see what we can find here. Let's do Adelia Redden. And birthplace said New York. And that was 1839. All right, let's see if we can find her that way. See if we can find any info. Okay, so it's kind of all over the place. So we have a mother, but that would have been a married name because there's her children and her husband. So that was, let's click on that and see what we get. I don't think this is it, but oh yeah, 1906. Definitely not. Okay. So we have a Catherine Redden, 1850. Ooh. Birth 1840, and her name was Catherine A. Redden. Ooh, she was interesting. She was born in New York. Her birth date was about 1840. Her middle name could have been Adelia. Okay, that's interesting. All right, let's look here. Yeah, this is fascinating because just some things that are interesting about this. So this is Thomas Redden, Ellen Redden. Ooh, big age difference. Yeah, so look at that. This is kind of interesting. So you've got Thomas Redden that was born in Ireland, and Ellen was also born in Ireland. Catherine A. was born in New York, and then Mary Ellen was born in Alabama. Like, that is so far away, that time period. So that would have had her born about 1842, and now they're back in New York. Interesting. That's very interesting. I'm going to go to the next page because I'm curious if there's other Reddens on there. Yeah, interesting. They have Redding. Yeah, that's so interesting. So this one was 6 years old and also born in New York. All right, so this is a possibility for us to search because she's about the right time frame. The last name is right, and her middle initial is A, so possible. And so I'm going to put a note down for Thomas Redden, and he was 46 in 1850 in New York. And Ellen is 27. Okay, both born in Ireland. Okay, so let's go, yeah, Catherine. Okay, let's see if we can do, let's just do Catherine and see what we come up with. Catherine Redden, 1839. Okay, so these are dates that are too late if I'm looking at these. And this one is not, because that birth is 1843, so not likely. That's a wrong date. Okay, so let's look up, Dad was Thomas. So let's see if we can do a family tree. And let's look up Thomas Redden. We know he was born in Ireland and his birth year was about 1804. But we know that his spouse was Ellen. And let's see what we get on that. Let's see if we get any hits. All right, so I don't think these are, I'm not getting much of a, not getting any warm fuzzies here. Okay. Let's go back here real quick. Let's go to search all collections again. And let's see if we can do let's try Adelia Redden. She might have lived in New York. And she was born in 1839. Let's see what we get there. Anything. All right, yeah, that was nothing. Okay, Adelia Redden. That doesn't work. Utah, New York. Yeah, dates are off on these. Let's actually go up within a year of birth and see if that changes it. I mean, maybe. Adelia. Possible. Okay, so we're just not getting a whole lot. Okay, so let's now, let's see what we can find newspaper-wise. So let's do, let's look again, because that was such a unique name to the area. Actually, I'm gonna do an exact phrase search, which is usually what I do. And I'm gonna be very specific. I am going to say Indiana, and I'm actually gonna say Greensburg because that's where they were. And let's do before 1875. Give a little bit of a buffer. She died in 1866. Okay, so I only have 4 results. Wow. Okay, so because there's only 4, that makes it super easy. So let's just kind of knock through these and see what information we can find. Okay, so it looks like we've got the case of Miller versus Sisco resulted in Sisco being required to give bond for his good behavior for 6 months in the sum of $200. Holy cow. Seems like a lot of money. Failing to give the required bond, he was sent to jail, but subsequently secured bail and is now at large. Interesting. Okay, so we don't really have, we don't know what that was in regard to. Okay, so let's see what else we got. That was in 1869. I'm just looking at dates here. That was February 1869. Here's a September 1869. I'm just trying to do time frame wise. See what this is. Oh gosh, I think Charlie is in trouble a lot. Charlie Sisco in jail. Not saying that was him before, but we're in jail here. We learn that in an affray at Columbus last week, which that tracks because the Charles W. Sisco that was married to Adelia Redden is buried in Bartholomew County, which is Columbus. We learned that in an affray at Columbus last week, Charlie Sisco cut another man severely with a knife and also succeeded in inserting his nose between his antagonist's teeth and getting it bit off. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. At latest accounts, he was in jail with a lively hope of staying there until court meets. Oh my gosh. So interesting that we have two different court things for the Sisco, but there's not any others. Like this was September 1869. I mean, this is almost a year later. Let's see what this one is. Hopefully it's not Charlie in jail again. Okay, so this one did not find Sisco anywhere on here. So this one would take a little bit longer to have to see what, I'll just look to see if there's any court things. Because that is likely what it is. Okay, 15th Amendment, national debt, economy. None of these are like local. Yeah, none of these are really local, like news. So hard to tell. Maybe in the one ads section, maybe. Okay, so really not. Said he was a shoemaker on that one census. So maybe these are all like physicians, dentists, attorneys, wool. Yeah, I'm not seeing it anywhere. I'd really have to scan this page to find that. I'm not seeing anything there. All right, we have one more. Let's see what we got. This one was from 1868. Oh, this one says Moses Sisco. So interesting. His dad was in Graceburg. Moses A. Sisco. I think he had a brother. I think one of the census said he had a brother, Moses, possibly. What is this? Washington Township Registry of Voters. Oh, how fun is that? Oh, I love that. Ah, that is so clever. So these are all of the people that were registered to vote. And one thing that's kind of curious, as you're looking at things like this, these are all of the S's. If you take a quick scan, you'll notice that these aren't in alphabetical order. I immediately thought that it probably was. So it is not in alphabetical order, but when I just kind of do a quick scan through here, that is the only Sisco that I see on here. And what year is this? 1868? Like, I feel like, okay, so maybe Charles, well, he could have been in jail, was not a registered voter. I love this. That is a great thing to be able to see. I'm sure I probably have relatives on here. I'm just doing a quick scan for Hamilton's. Yeah, that is so funny. Yep. There's an uncle. Wow, that's amazing. Love that. That's a great thing to have. Okay, so not finding anything there. All right, let's do same location. Let's do a search. Let's change that name spelling. See if we have any luck. And one thing as I think about, okay, oh yeah, look here. This is CW Sisco, assault and battery with intent to kill. I bet that's our boy. So one thing that I think is interesting, so you'll see different spellings in newspapers. Also we saw him as Charlie. We've seen him as CW. We've seen him as Charles. So that's one thing you have to think about when you're searching in newspapers, all of the different ways that people could be listed. We're just not having any luck with Adelia, but again, that time frame for a female, it's not a surprise. While that's loading, I wanted to see what else was on here. Here's one from 1852. Here's another one, accident to CW Sisco. Let's see if this one's gonna load for us. I'm gonna pull that one up while that one was August 6th. I just can't get over this one for the voter list. That is fabulous. I'm gonna have to clip that because that is amazing. Okay, so those aren't loading for me, but I can come back to those because I want to go. So, I'm really looking and driving at the story for Adelia here and not necessarily, CW, but is definitely, it's kind of the other research that kind of filters out and comes out when you're searching for somebody. It's not just that one person. Yeah, and these are dates. I did Adelia, and these are dates past when she died, which was 1866. So no luck there. Okay, so I think I'm also going to try, let's do Adelia Sisco. And let's go back and let's do a state. Let's do Ohio because we think they were there in the 1860s and see if we get any hits there. So just again, kind of thinking about the other research. Yeah, I'm not getting anything. Let's do Charles Sisco. Think too, it's not just that one person. You can always, we have some other people. Yeah, nothing for him. Let's try CW. It's all the other kinds of research that you can do for other people that have kind of been related to this. So Calvin, for instance, was one person that popped up in our research. So we could always search the other people that we're finding. So there's Calvin a couple of different ways. Moses was another one that we found. So we could search Moses, and we had, maybe some that Thomas Redden possibility in New York. So there are some other ways to go about it and things that you can look for. Adelia may be one that we're just kind of, we've found what we could find about her, especially being a woman and having died in 1866. Is going to be tough. But what usually I do now is I will take all of that information that I found and kind of build together kind of her life and what her life consisted of with the records that we have. Again, little information, but then I can build a story, which is usually what I do. I create those stories. I will put the story in the link for this video that I create of her. I don't have a lot to go on, but it's just something. I like to be able to write these stories to kind of remember people that don't have people to remember them anymore. I hope you like this video. If you do, make sure you hit like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing others in a very similar vein where I just pick a gravestone that I've seen at the cemetery, and I will just do kind of a step-by-step search through how I go about trying to find them and their stories.